This is one of those coverages that when you take where it started, which is in traditional trucking, and becomes a very regulated industry, and there's a very set way to do things in traditional over-the-road trucking, right? And then you take and try to apply it to how the final mile space specifically operates. The standard motor truck cargo form, as it's referred to, falls apart very, very quickly. All right. And I'll give you a great easy one on that. If it's not a vehicle scheduled on a policy, it's not covered. The cargo is not covered unless that vehicle that was in at the time of loss is on a policy. Would never, ever, ever be able to pull that off in this space specifically, right? Based on how everybody operates. So there's a big emphasis in our world to make sure that you know that the goods that your client is entrusting to you, regardless of how they get from A to B, have coverage attached to them, right? And in order to do that, you've got to really take a custom form approach to it, because anything other than that is going to fall short in one way, shape, or form. So all that being said, we pay attention to some very key elements in the form. And the first one, if you can get outside of just it has to be in this vehicle, right, would be the valuation clause. And the valuation clause will typically say in a standard form, the lesser of the limit on the bill of lading, the cost to replace or the cost to repair the goods, right? So you take everyone's standard bill of lading or delivery receipt where the limitation is some 50 cents per pound, $100 flat, right? And you have a $10,000 loss for a good customer. And under a standard form, you would be giving them a whopping, $100 or some minimal amount, versus having the ability to pay that claim at the cost to replace or repair it. And so that is probably the number one culprit for, I think, most people when you're taking a standard motor truck cargo form and trying to apply it to this space. I'll be quiet and let you guys talk about the other.
Well, I was going to actually add on to your example of the cargo in this vehicle, right? Obviously, that is an issue when we have a hybrid risk and we've got fleet autos plus 1099s. We're securing the cargo in both the fleet auto plus the 1099s. But I've seen a real life example where someone thought they had their bases covered because they were just fleet auto and they did business with one of the standard out of the box insurers, and they've got fleet auto insurance, they've got cargo, they got GL wrapped in, went and rented a truck, coverage didn't apply. The cargo got thefted, coverage didn't apply because the cargo didn't extend over that rental vehicle, right? Because ultimately they got rental coverage from Ryder or Penske, whoever it was. This was a weekend job, didn't even think twice about the freight. So again, this just goes back to not all forms, not all coverages are created equal, and knowing those fine details are important, and that's where having a good risk advisor can help you kind of go through some of those items. Looking further onto this, look at the warranties, right? Unintended vehicle, unlocked vehicle warranties. Those are critical, in this space. We've seen claims, real life claims where someone's hauling commodities, they stop to use the restroom, fail to lock the vehicle, and it gets thefted. No coverage, right? So I think these are things when it comes to cargo insurance to be asking, the broker or risk advisor you're utilizing to procure that coverage, what types of warranties or exclusions are included on the policy.
Yeah, I mean, we see commodity exclusions with pharmaceuticals, electronics, tobacco, alcohol. I mean, you name it, there is probably a form that's got some commodity you're moving excluded, on the form. And it's important to not just to think through your large clients, right? I mean, obviously those are the ones that are most important to you from a revenue standpoint. But I think when you think about the total breadth of your operation and the different customers you have and the industries they're in, you've really got to look at that part of the proposal or the quote document that you get from your broker and run through the excluded commodities on the cargo and say, like, okay, where could any of these, apply? And if you have any sort of concern about that, then it's always best to go back to the broker with a question about, hey, this is what we move for them. Can you get something in writing from the underwriter saying, yeah, we understand that shouldn't be an issue with coverage, right? Anything in writing from an underwriter is always very positive to have to avoid any sort of miscommunication at claim time.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you can catch the light up right off the beginning. I mean, if you fill out an application and those questions aren't asked right off, what you're hauling and the types of goods, and you get a proposal, you really want to question that. Unfortunately, one of our downsides to our program is our application's fairly lengthy, but it captures all of that information. So you're disclosing all of that information to an underwriter who should, in theory, be able to make sure that it's covered properly, and as well as your broker to make sure of that. So it's all very, very important throughout the entire process.